Mr Mayor, I won't be supporting the two-tier process. I think it is cumbersome, I think it's expensive, and I think it is actually a disgrace on democracy to have unelected people sitting in judgment of a plan on which they also submitted.
Yeah.
No, they were elected.
Rightio, councillor.
They were elected
By the iwi.
No side bars. Councillor Carthy Casey.
Trust that you'll keep me right, Mr Mayor, as I try and go through the things. I'd like to respond to a few people. I'll start with Dick. And Cameron suggested that somehow this two-stage process has been hatched out of thin air in the last few days. The earliest I remember it was back in April, and it was a meeting that both councillors attended. I don't recall either of them mentioning an issue about the way the process would be taken up. Similarly with Councillor Fletcher talked about this being the most important decision that Auckland will make. Absolutely agree with her. I don't agree with her on the rest of what she said, because if it is the most important decision that Auckland will make, and it is, then who are we to deny Māori a voice? And I think that's what this is all about. It's either you have the independent Māori Statutory Board, which is our only Māori voice, because we have no Māori seats, as Councillor Cooper said.
Point of order. Mr Chairman, I was at pains to say, for me, the issue was about you being in the chair. I separated the issue.
It's not a point of order, Mr Chairman, and it's just an interruption to my
it actually is. So, Councillor Fletcher, I will address the points that you made once everyone's had the chance to speak. Carry on, Councillor Cathy.
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
Look, I'm really over points of order that are not points of order.
I look, just as a correction, because you
That's a correction, not a point of order,
you took Councillor Ralph's...
Councillor Quacks, I've been listening to your points of order for 9 years now.
Learned something?
And getting well, I've learnt that most of them are not points of order. So, and this is not either, so just let's listen to Councillor Cathy. Way you go, Councillor Cathy.
Lovely sense.
This is actually about the legitimacy, or what councillors perceive the legitimacy of the Independent Māori Statutory Board. Now, it's not what I would want. I would want elected members around this table, but that ain't what we've got, nor is it what we've decided to do. So maybe the next council will have a different view. What we do have is the Independent Māori Statutory Board, who sit on 15 of our 18 committees. And to say at this late stage, you cannot take part, it's not judgment, Councillor Quacks. You talked about judgment. We can't let them sit on judgment. We're not inviting them to sit in judgment. We're inviting them to continue the process of looking at the recommendations. It's we who sit in judgment. And that's the two-stage process, which you didn't seem to find, you didn't have a problem with back in April, when you were at this meeting where it was discussed. So back to the Independent Māori Statutory Board. Here's the latest report. And that's what everybody's forgetting here. This is how Māori get a voice round this council table. And boy, has it been a powerful voice in the last 6 years. We've got the Māori plan, we get annual reports. Some councillors don't turn up to things, you know, the quarterly meetings where we're advised of how things are going. I'm just saying, you know, there is a barrier between some councillors and the IMSB, and I think that that's what's been played out today. But it's been dressed up differently. But it's about whether you think Māori should have a voice in the discussion of the IHP proposals or not. And I think if you say no, you are not just insulting the Independent Māori Statutory Board, whose members we have sat with for the last 6 years. And I welcomed them to my committee, and they've been an enormous source of inspiration for me, in all the committees, actually. So we've all sat with them, and now you're saying, actually, no. For whatever reason, and there's a whole host of reasons being given. The reason you need to have them here is, as David says in his chairman's introduction, we sit on the panels to ensure Māori perspectives are heard within a wide range of decision-making process. If you say no to the Independent Māori Statutory Board, you're effectively saying no to the Māori perspective being heard. And of course there will be rules around conflicts of interest. We've discussed those. do not say no at this late stage, because I actually think this debate is insulting to them. And I'm sure they're all watching. David, I'm sorry for this debate, actually. So for goodness sake, wind it up, let them in, and then we will make the judgments, Councillor Quacks.
Okay. Councillor Cowell.
Oh, thanks, Mr Mayor, and we're probably on to $25,000 in there on this one so far. But I just want to acknowledge Penny and Alf as the Chair and Deputy Chair of the Unitary Plan Committee. And I just want to really go back, Mr Mayor, you made the opening comments about when you appointed me to my committees, and you quite rightly said, I said no. And I think I might have used some colourful language, I think,
You
from
weren't
memory, because I didn't want anything, but I ended up with it. And I wanted to try and, so that moving from there onwards, I wanted to make sure that the job was done with the utmost respect to all involved. But this particular one is of interest to me, and why I say that is that Glenn Wilcox, I always counted him as my number 5 councillor, and why I say that is because I can recall going back in 2010 when Councillor Morrison chaired the Regulatory and Bylaws Committee, and he done a bloody good job of it, man, and he showed me the way too. And he's been involved in this process through the UP. Hence is probably why it's landed where it's landed, with some of his skills and expertise.
Yeah.
And he taught me a lot in that 3 years that I was on the first Auckland Council when we come together. And in particular, respect and process. Respect and process. And whilst I might have my views on the IMSB, the government set the legislation, we didn't. I had my views when we come together as one council, and we fought hard, as Teresa will tell you, to stay out of the one city. But the government set the legislation.
You're issuing passports. Damn.
The government set the legislation, and that's the nature of the beast. But if I go back to when we sat round in the second term of this council, and I can recall downstairs asking not once but 3 times from our staff, well, the staff asked me, can we please get some councillors to commit themselves to the bylaw process? And Councillor Wood know this extremely well, because in the first term we had an immense problem trying to get people to sit on that committee to listen to the submissions and the hearings and the dog issues, 10,000 plus submitters that come into the ATS square and abused the hell out of us. And then, of course, in the second term, I had to bring a whiteboard in and say, please, councillors, can you step up and support us? And it was the same 10 councillors. And thank goodness that we had member Wilcox, because he always stepped up. He went from the length and the breadth of this region. He was everywhere. He did his homework, probably more so than me. And I can recall a number of my council colleagues around this table saying, thank goodness that he's turned up, or Karen, because it made up the numbers, because sometimes we're just about ready to lapse, if we didn't lapse. So, to go through this process to this stage now, 3/4 of the way through the process and try and change it, to me would be like jumping on a jumbo jet at Auckland International Airport and flying to London and jumping off that plane halfway through flight. You just don't do it. See the process through to completion. And then it's our decision at the end of the day. We make that decision around this table, whether it's right or wrong. The LTP and the annual plan was a prime example of that. I didn't support everything in the LTP. I didn't support everything in the annual plan, but I supported it. Why? For the betterment of Auckland, the betterment of New Zealand, and a betterment for the globe. I'll leave it at that.
The globe. There you go.
That's big stuff, Dick.
Councillor Denise.
Thank you, Mr Chairman, Your Worship the Mayor. I want to try and contain my comments to not involving the IMSB, but just take the angle of the legal, the practical and the authority. So I had expected some comments. We got this report yesterday afternoon and have had to subsume it. And I expect to find, and was actually kind of told, that would be getting some legal advice on why it was going to be a very good idea to not have the whole thing go to a one-stage process, but I don't see that. Instead, I do see, in our terms of reference, we can clearly choose between a one-stage and a two-stage. And so, Mr Chairman, I choose the one-stage, and I do so because when I also read that report and I look at the practical points that we're asked to consider, some of them like we need to keep doing things in an orderly manner, just quoting some quotes here. We've already got electronic appointments set up that involve ADC. Staff need time to review wording of our resolutions between ADC and GB. All of those things are easily dealt with. They're a no-brainer. We can handle them all in the one stage. So I hardly think that that's a reason to rest with one stage over the other. The other point that I'd raise is that in terms of business as usual and the call for us to retain business as usual, this isn't business as usual. The unitary plan is not business as usual, and I echo the comments made by my colleagues earlier that this is of very large and strategic importance for the city. And so my decision today here is for this final stage and final accountability to rest with this final regional authority.
Right, thank you. Councillor Ross.
Well, there's a couple of Scots over here, Councillor Casey and myself, so we're giving our slant on things, including being...
Declare independence.
We are, including being fiscally dry. So 25,000 an hour for this meeting, we've got to be aware of that, I think. I want to commend Councillor Filipina for his words. I think they were well chosen and reminded us of a number of pertinent points, including attendance at meetings. You don't need to go in to see that I didn't go to many of because I had great faith in all of you doing it. Went to certain, and I'm here to adjudicate on this as we go forward. I want to hear from the Independent Maori Statutory Board. I mean, that's the bottom line. That's the way we've got the structure set up. It'll be interesting next year when we, whoever's here, gets to discuss Maori seats on the governing body. If I'm a councillor, I won't be voting for seats on the governing body because it's not where I think we should be going. However, that means I'm totally supportive of the structure we have at the moment with the Independent Statutory Board. And Councillor Brewer's pointed out that there will be some interesting conflicts of interest for them to work their way through if they do get to participate in the Auckland Development Committee, because they have made quite extensive submissions, so that will be interesting how they deal with that on a personal basis and as a group decision. But in the bottom line is it's still, in the end, if any vote on the unitary plan was that close and it was passed at the development stage by the vote of one or two of the Independent Maori Statutory Board members, then that would give hope to those who are going to who may be inclined to think about not supporting the actual unitary plan, that they go to the governing body and they can vote it down because it'll be that tight. So I look forward to see how that dilemma pans out.
Yeah. Yes, it will be most fascinating. Right, Councillor Sharon.
Right, okay. A lot of this has been about me. Okay, I'm just going to say that I'm going to be, later this afternoon, I'm going to be having some legal advice.
Excellent.
And on conflicts of interest. And I'm aware that a lot of you councillors have actually been to have some legal advice, and if you haven't, possibly it's a good idea to do it, because I think not just putting the submission, and I think there's a lot of us around the table, and I'd say just about everybody around the table over the last few years has had an awful lot to say about different parts of the unitary plan. In fact, we've had some councillors that have been threatened that if they say anything that they won't be able to maybe take part in the final vote. You know, I've got lists and lists of documentation of what different people have said, and I think just as far as the like the Maori Statutory anyway, like the Maori Statutory Board, they have put they've put in their own submissions. I've put in a personal submission, and I will be taking advice on how I will handle that, and whatever I have. The Auckland, you know, is the thing that I really want this plan to come to fruition. We've all been working really hard on it, but I'd like to also just say that back in 2013, when all of this sort of started, I can't actually recall, and possibly we were told, but I can't actually recall being told that we couldn't put in a submission, because I mean, I can decide whether I'm going to withdraw from parts of it or whatever, and I guess that's something that I'll be finding out a little bit later on. And just, I think the Office of the Auditor General has actually given us some really good advice, and I think every single one of us in this room needs to make sure that you know, they're all covered, because we do want this plan to happen, and we don't want to stuff it up, and I certainly don't want to stuff it up. And I haven't done anything in malice. I just want to, and I think most of you around the table know my personality, and that I care about everybody, and I want everything to be right.